Today, Office Hours welcomes Pablo Quintana, founder and CEO of Avsono. His team has recently introduced the NDI Network Manager, which they're claiming is a first-of-its-kind platform bringing NDI signal monitoring into a centralized space. So for those managing live broadcast production setups, it's a tool that's supposed to help us streamline every part of that workflow and monitor it. In addition to the panel discussion, we'll be taking your questions via Makana as we explore how the NDI Network Manager can impact the workflows, what that might mean for the future. Pablo, welcome. It's great to have you here.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
So we'll get started right off the bat. What should we know about NDI Network Manager?
Well, it was launched at IBC this year. We've been working for a year. It was a longer pregnancy that we expected. It is. We're claiming it to be the first telemetry solution for NDI. So we already claimed it, so nobody else can claim it now. Whereas we can get some data and actually not just, you're trying to figure out with your own eye, hey, am I dropping frames? Am I getting the frames per second I need on the live feed? No, now you can use an actual engineering tool to get some data on your NDI streams. Yes, that's the purpose of it.
So you launched this at IBC just 4 weeks ago. What was the reception like there? What's the feedback that you're hearing about it thus far?
It was like, wow, we've been needing this for so long. And then I was replied like, yeah, that's why we're here. Because people are asking always like, we need something to measure the performance. How do we monitor the signals? How to know all the signals that are there? How to know what the quality of them are in a single dashboard with some metrics, right? Not just like your eye, but actually knowing exactly what these performance metrics are for all your NDI signals, plus more things that we're going to bring onto these dashboards at the same time. It's not going to be only limited to NDI, but currently we're starting with NDI as we're a partner of VSRT.
Now, you got to understand, this group is a very technically focused, kind of nuts and bolts sort of folks. So I guess I should give you permission or almost encourage you to really dive into some of the technical back end on how is the software achieving what it's doing, and then also, like, what are the requirements? Are you needing to have this an appliance running on-prem? Is this something that you're able to remote into? How does all that work?
Right. So since the get-go, we decided this is going to be a remote product, like a cloud product. Could be on-prem, could be on cloud, but it works on both sides. And the dashboard that you will be able to see and the metrics and the alerts, the recording of the logs, everything is in a separate space. Currently, we're offering it as a SaaS, as a cloud service, but you could also have it on-prem. And then we have little pieces of software called the agents, which will collect the data, and they can be anywhere in the world, literally anywhere in the world, as long as these agents, which will be collecting the data from your network, are able to communicate with another piece of software called the gateway, which will collect all the data, and then the gateway will push the data to the dashboard. We call it it's actually the observability platform. I'm sure you are familiar with Prometheus. You're familiar with Grafana. So we decided to go with those open source platforms, and that way we could just parse the data, put it in a format that then we can charge. So we're sending tons of statistics from the agents to the gateway. But also, very importantly, we're also sending data back. That's something very important. We're not just collecting data, but we're able to send commands back to the agents. So the agents can, let's say, turn on a test signal, or the agents can connect via API to some other software, some other hardware device. So you can, reset a switch via an API command. So our gateway is going to collect the data from the cloud or the observability platform, wherever it is, get it, and then distribute it amongst all the agents which are located, inside computers. Of course, our current software is only for anything that runs on a computer, even on a Raspberry Pi. We have not gone through hardware devices still, but we're getting there. We might run these little pieces of the software inside FPGA machines later on, but that, in a nutshell, is how it works.
And then, do you have any ability to give us a little tour of what one of those dashboards looks like, and some of those metrics that we're able to see?
Let me quickly go over a little diagram here. So, for instance, for these tests that we're running right now, we're running it in the cloud. Of course, these computers can be anywhere, right? It doesn't need to be in the cloud, but they're currently in the cloud. We have a VPC in the west, one VPC in the east. They're connected. And then we have the observability server somewhere else. As you're well aware, the NDI traffic will basically work within the VPC, unless you have something else to bring the data from the other VPC in here. But generally, all the discovery servers or the MDNS and Bonjour messages sent by NDI will be confined to the broadcast domain of the VPC. So we get all this traffic, but then we install agents on each of these computers, all right? And then we have one gateway down here. And this is our traffic. So the yellow ones is the NDI traffic, and then this is the applications traffic, which is running on HTTP. And all the statistics that are collected by the agents are pushed to the gateway, centralized. This gateway only needs an outgoing port. That's very important. We're not exposing any ports. We're not exposing any ports on the agents. So the agents can be very well behind it, your firewalls, your own private networks. As long as the gateway is in the boundary between the internet and or a connection to the cloud observability platform, then that gateway will be able to collect the data from the agents and push it out to the cloud observability server, which is, like I said, a stack of Grafana, Prometheus, and a few other software there. So this is a topology of it. And the last thing I'm going to say, which is very important, is that all the metrics that we're extracting it with actual video frames. We're not using ping. We're not using trace routes. So if you're giving you a latency measurement between two agents, we're actually using video frames, NDI video frames to test. So we're actually coming down from the application layer, OSI model, down to the lower layers, and then going up again. And we're actually testing the full path. We're actually testing we're testing your codecs, your encoding, your decoding. We're testing your QoS and your switches and all these good things. So here's a quick view of the dashboard. We call these services or these panels here. And up here, you can select what we named the point of view. So these are the agents, right? This is one gateway. This is multiple agents. The agent that you select, you'll get the data from that agent. So imagine you're remoting into a computer, running Studio Monitor to see which signals you have there, right? Instead of that, you'll be able to just do this, right? Select here, and then now I can see what that agent on that network, on that agent sees, right? And we're not just listing the NDI devices or sources. We're actually giving you information about what it contains. If it has video, right? It says true, then it'll give you it'll give you the resolution here. It'll give you what codec it's using. It'll give you, if it has audio, how many audio channels, what's the sample rate, if it is compressed audio or not, if it has metadata. So we're not just giving you the list of all the sources. We're actually connecting to every NDI source, and we're asking, what are you sending, right? Now you have a list of what you should expect. Remember that the NDI source configured at 30 frames per second doesn't mean that you're going to be able to receive 30 frames per second, but at least you know that's what's being sent, right? And then when you test it with an actual test, like, for instance, here, when you're actually testing, you can see that you're not getting 30 frames per second, right? You're expecting 30 frames per second, but you're not getting it. What's going on, right? Now then you can have another view of your network. And I can keep going, but I would like to just hold it on, because I can go for an hour talking about all the other features that it have. But the point is that you have these panels which will test your network with NDI video frames. Will give you the one-way network latency, for instance, from one agent, in this case, agent 1200 to OBS West, right? So this is the receiving, and this is the sender. So we are testing, and we can reverse it. I can send it from OBS West to 1200, so I can test one-way network latency, which is very important.
And that's not the NDI latency. That's the actual latency between the networks.
Exactly. That's exactly because the NDI latency is going to be around the frames per second, which is 1 over frames per second, because they're sending the frames every 1 over frames per second. But in the case of the latency, we're actually testing the latency of the network, just like you said, but we're not using a ping. we're using a video frame, which is going to test your network switches configuration, right? Your TOS is going to test all the things that are in between. It's actually going to test your decoding as well on at the receiving end. So you can be certain to say that, let's say at this point here, we had 0.21 milliseconds. That was exactly the time these video frame took from the origin 1200 to OBS West. Now, these are test signals. So we encourage people to use test signals as a proxy of measuring your network, because these can be run permanently. So in this case, for instance, I can show you the last 6 hours, right? Well, in this case, I don't have 6 hours of this. Well, let's say the last hour, right? So you can see that you can maintain these running here, and then you can set up some thresholds and say, hey, if these go beyond 10 milliseconds, send me an alert, for instance, right? So this is like a proxy. You have these test signals running very low resolution, sending 200 packets every minute. So you're testing your network permanently. It's not a snapshot of your network. It's a permanent record of the quality of your network. And if you want more specific information about your sources, yes, you can connect to them. But remember that if you connect to an NDI source, you're duplicating that source, most likely. If you don't have multicast, you're going to duplicate the resources on the sender. You're going to duplicate the resources on the receiver, and you're going to duplicate the network pattern. So you might be affecting your network by just testing it. But yeah,
so essentially by running these tests all the time, you're able to establish a baseline of what's to be expected with your current architecture. And then when you get closer to your event or closer to whatever your actual production is, you're then able to see, is there more stress than is expected on the network? Because I know what I should be seeing versus what's actually here. It's kind of like a heartbeat chart the whole way through.
You're spot on. And the idea that this is running permanently gives you an idea that, hey, at 9 p.m. yesterday, the signal went crazy. Okay, what happened at 9 p.m.? Because if you only have snapshots, the signal could have gone wrong 2 seconds ago or 2 hours ago or 2 days ago, and you didn't notice, right? So with our permanent recording of this data, then you're able to establish a baseline, just like you said, and you can establish, like you said, we can establish alerts. So in this case, for instance, the green line is coming from US East into OBS West, right? So we can see now that the latency one way, it's about 26 milliseconds in this case, right? This is not optimized networks. Of course, it's just a regular, we connected it and we didn't do any optimization. But in this case, you can see that the local networks are producing 0.2 milliseconds, but the actual things are coming from, away from another VPC. It's taking about 26 milliseconds. And now you can say, now you can even use these data to sync, right? You can have several delaying of all the cameras to the slower one, right? Because now you're going to be measuring what the latency is between all these other locations and a central location, which could be your master control room, or it could be your, OB truck or whatever you're using, or in the cloud, right? And we have many more features that I would love to talk to you about, but I would like to just give you space to have these sink in and maybe ask some questions about it.
Sure, this would be a great time to get into some of our producer questions. I know that we've already got some stacking up. So why don't we get into the first question?
First one's from Zach Stallsmith in Chautauqua, New York. Should we have a dedicated machine for running NDI Network Manager, or is this okay to run on a production machine, which includes 16 gigabytes of RAM?
Right. So there are 2 pieces to the software. Well, actually 3. The observability platform should be dedicated. We are offering as a SaaS service. So if you subscribe, you'll get that observability platform in the cloud. And then there's the gateway and the agents. So the agents can be running anywhere. Should be running on a vMix machine. Yes, of course. Should be running on a separate machine that's next to your 10 bird dog cameras. Yes, because that machine will represent the network where those cameras are. So the agents should be located at strategically points on your network, right? If you have 2 agents on the same switch, on the same network, both are going to see the same thing. So there's no point in having those 2 together, right? They should be located strategically. So in terms of resources, and the gateway has to be in a way that can see the internal network, the agent, and can then see the observability platform. If it is in the internet, in the cloud, then of course it needs to have internet access. But if you have your observability platform inside your VPC, as long as you can communicate to it. Now, we're using T2 nanos to test this. We made it very, very efficient because our intention from the beginning, after discussing this with NewTek, back then it was NewTek, is that we would like to have these even installed in a TriCaster at some point, right? So they can have more test signals and get more information. So it's very light, very unintrusive. That's the philosophy we used since the beginning.
What's the protocol for if you don't want those test signals to be running when you're actually using your network for production? What is your method that you use to actually switch the out of test mode so that you're freeing up those resources, freeing up that network bandwidth? Is that a pretty straightforward process?
It is. So everything here. So let's see the logs here. So this is the agent. So every agent can turn on or off its test signal, can turn on and off a stress signal, which is basically a test signal, but you decide what the resolution in frames per second are. So you can generate, let's say, 4K 60 frames per second signals, and you can turn off the collection of stats. So every agent can be a stats collector, a test signal sender, or a stress signal sender, right? And then you come here, need to move away these panels. So here's our configuration panel. So you'll come in here, select agent Wirecast, select the test signal sender, and just leave it off or turn it on. So everything can be controlled remotely. So from these dashboard, you can turn on signals, turn off signals. So let's say you're managing a network for some company, right? You're as a managed services. You can have these agents installed and have them dormant. And then when they call, there's a problem. You have your technical team log in remotely, and instead of trying to remote into a computer, you'll log into these dashboard, turn on a few test signals, and see, hey, I'm getting the signal to this point, but I'm not getting to these other points. Or I'm getting a degraded signal somewhere else. So yeah, let's say I'm going to turn this off. I just click submit here, and now it's going to be turned off. You can also modify your JSON file here. So let's say I'm going to go to this one, and you can, get it to do multicast. So, and you can do for all your agents in a single go, and it will alter the JSON file, update it, and save it. So, and restart our network manager agent. So you can manage the JSON files, and you can also manage any service that we're setting up, which you can manage remotely. So that's the way you can have everything turned off, CJ.
That's great. Let's hop to the next question.
Douglas Carmichael asks, can NDI Network Manager be deployed in an on-premises NDI studio?
Certainly. It was built to be on cloud or on-prem. I mean, wherever you want it. If you need to set it up on-prem, yeah, you need to go with the enterprise version of the license. It's not going to be the prosumer version. The enterprise version will require us to help you set up the observability platform and set it up for you. But yes, that was part of the intention since the beginning.
Just a reminder, we will get back to some questions later. If you go into Makana and get those questions, you can also vote on the questions and chat about the questions if you like. Thanks again to Pablo for being here. The next question that I had, as far as on NDI Network Manager, I mean, what do you find, or what have you had the feedback of is the primary problem that's getting solved when folks are putting this solution in? Like, what couldn't they do before that they're able to do now?
There are very limited testing tools currently for NDI, right? Basically, you can name two: Bird Dog Dino and the network NDI analysis tool, right? Part of these are T tools, and that's it. Then those two tools are like you run it once. You can run it for one signal and get a snapshot of what's going on, right? So what we did is that we combine those tools into a dashboard will be running permanently and recording and alerting and having thresholds, and also our dashboard. And I'm going to probably mention this a little bit later if there's enough time. I could talk about what's coming in version 1. Right now we're version 0.96. But when we're releasing version 1, we'll make this a modular system. So we are already working with companies. I wouldn't be able to mention names right now, but let's say the leader in the space of AV switches. And we're working in order to create a panel. So let's say you find out you have a problem with your NDI signal. So what's the next stage? You need to go and see your switches, right? You need to see what's going on. So we will provide you with the information directly on our same dashboard. You'll have a dashboard related to that switch. So you can see this signal is on this port. this port is being maxed out, this port is showing you errors, this port is, or the uplink is, in this stage. Or you can start generating stress signals and see how your switch responds in terms of the bandwidth use and stuff. So it's a way to remotely manage your network and get some actual stats permanently. So that's why we're claiming it to be the first one.
And I have to say, I'm pretty excited about it. I mean, in the sense that it is telemetry is everything. Like in my world, telemetry, understanding what's happening with a signal. Like when I started doing telemetry, we were really doing. We put up scopes, and here's why we put up scopes is because people didn't understand. Like if I'm live streaming and charging you X dollars for me to bring some elementals and hit go, you don't know, you don't see anything, you don't understand why you're paying for that. And so we literally put up scopes, audio and video scopes, just to eye candy. Like it was just so the clients thought we were doing something. But very quickly after we started doing that, we started realizing, oh, I can tell you, I can see what's happening here, and I can tell you that the audio is too low or the video is too hot or whatever. But I don't have to tell you, oh, I kind of feel like it, or I think it's there. I just see the number, and I can see that. And from that point on, we became obsessed with telemetry. Like you got to give me, because when you're trying to chase down a problem, having all that data, not only the data, but the history of the data over time is so valuable, whether that's audio or video or the telemetry of NDI. It's something that, and especially when we work in the cloud, I always feel like we're flying blind. Like, just like we don't know what's going on out there. And it's one of the reasons that I resist putting some shows on in the cloud is because I don't have this telemetry. Like I can't measure what's going on at a node by node level. And this really looks really good.
You're spot on, because went back to CJ's question, what couldn't they do before? Because there's plenty of tools for that for SMT2110. There's plenty for the legacy media, right? Of course, we can call SMT2110 not legacy, but I mean, still, it's like the broadcast, physical cables, physical wires going. But when you go to cloud, you don't have the same tools, right? Because everything has to be converted back to software. So that's why we started with NDI. And we're generating the same amount of tools. And as I continue showing you what we're going to do, we're getting information. Like probably you're familiar with a tool called from Hitomi, like the lip sync devices, right? I think they're
Matchbox.
The Matchbox, exactly, and they have the glass and stuff, right? But that's a physical hardware device, right? That needs to be placed at the OB truck or the master control room somewhere to read the data, right? But when you go to cloud, how do you do that, right? And we're actually going to do that with our implementation of, we did an implementation of PTP in our protocols. So we're going to be able to measure the latency for audio and for video, just like Hitomi does with our own method. Let's say we're not infringing anything, but we're going to use the same for cloud. So
I don't know if you're infringing, even if you did exactly what they're doing, because, the Hitomi, the Matchbox is based on the Valid 8. And the Valid 8 has been around for a long time. so
probably it wasn't it's expired already.
Yeah, I think that the technique that was used for the Valid 8, I think is probably long gone. But Hitomi has made. I mean, what to their credit, they've vastly improved their analysis of, as you said, baseband. But what we don't have is that kind of tool in the cloud. You're 100% right.
And we're about to release it. Go ahead, CJ.
No, I was going to say, Courtney actually had a follow-up. I wanted to throw it to him for a moment.
I just wanted to know if you've developed your pricing structure, and since it's software as a service, is it a subscription based, and is it based on a certain period of time, or can you subscribe to it or license it for just an event or a special setup at a time, or is it only available as a annual or a monthly subscription? And what different tiers do you have for pricing?
Yeah, got you. We're still learning about that. We came up with two solutions currently. The basic one, which is just a starter, $15 a month. The minimum time frame will be a month. And the prosumer version, which will provide you with 25 agents and one gateway plus the observability platform in the cloud. That's at $89 per month right now. Of course, if you subscribe for a year, you'll get right now a few months free and even come down to $59 a month. And And of course, we have the third tier, which is the enterprise. Call us. We can tell you the price until we know what you want, right? So yeah, we have the enterprise version and we have the prosumer version, which I think is going to be it's basically the best tool, the best bang for the buck here. And yeah, right now it's only for a month. We haven't thought about any like per show kind of structure yet.
And none of this requires any on-prem hardware then, since it's all cloud-based?
Everything will be in our SaaS option. Everything can be cloud-based. And on-prem, yes, we would need to come and set it up for you. But yes,
so you have a piece of hardware on-prem that is...
No, there's no pieces of hardware. Everything is software. Everything is software. Yes.
Thanks.
Let's get to the next question.
Next one's from Jason Beish in Albuquerque, New Mexico. What changes, if any, need to be done to DNS to take a typical NDI installation and add NDI Network Manager?
To DNS, I wouldn't. I don't think there's anything to do with the DNS for setting up NDI. I mean, all the discovery is done internally on the network, and I don't think you need. The gateway needs internet access, so that computer, the one with the gateway, might need to have a function in DNS, right? But otherwise, all the agents can be on a private VPC, air gap, totally, no problem.
Next question.
Guy Cochran in Seattle, Washington. Without revealing names, can you tell us how clients are using this in the real world?
Well, since we launched a few weeks ago, it was September, right? So yeah, we're still getting some customers testing it, and they're using it. Our mutual friend Jeff Kickley, he was telling us about an event he was having that he was trying to send some communication back from the beach to his truck, and then it was this air fiber. So it's not fiber, it was air fiber, and he was saying, hey, it would have had this tool. I would have been able to tell the guys that are providing this link, it doesn't work for video, right? A ping might work. That's the point, right? When you hire these links or you get some network IT people, they'll just run a ping and say, hey, it works. But when you send actual video frames, it doesn't work. So that's how this tool can help actual users. And we have other big companies already testing it, like global broadcasters. They're so excited about it because, again, there's nothing like it in the cloud. Neither on-prem, but I mean, in the cloud in particular, I think they're very excited about it.
Guy, you had a follow-up?
Yeah, I'm excited to test this. Just yesterday, I had purchased a couple of these MIDI forums PCs. Our friend Jeff Keithley has these units as well. And what we're trying to figure out is using NDI Bridge, how many remote PTZ cameras can we get to be able to, at what quality, going from 8 megabit all the way up to ultra 16 megabit, can we have remote people in the cloud, in vMix, Mimo Live, Wirecast, whatever, control these cameras and cut these cameras at what level. So having a tool that actually let me see, okay, at 8 megabit, you're clean, you're not dropping any frames, but at 16 megabit, you're dropping frames. And, you want to adjust that quality slider because part of this testing is, with Bridge, there's the Intel Arc, there's NVIDIA, and then there's Radeon. So there's 3 different manufacturers. And as people start to realize that Bridge is actually going to be embedded in cameras. We heard this at NAB with Dr. NDI. He said, hey, it's coming. Like, you're going to get Bridge as a chip inside of the camera. So now all of a sudden, you're going to have that camera just be able to point to the cloud, and you're going to want to see what's going on. Am I in a hotel ballroom getting, 5 megabit, or do I need to lower that quality slider back down to low and just get a really low quality image, but at least it's full frame rate. So this is an exciting tool. I'm excited to dive into it. I had heard Jeff Keithley mention it a number of times, and I just hadn't downloaded it yet. But now I'm excited, especially
shout out to Jeff. Yeah, yeah, definitely. He's a big promoter, and the pioneers get the arrows in the back, right? So he's the one that's testing it, and so let me quickly show you here one thing that also is interesting. So we can always, where an agent is installed, it will show you also stats from your machine. So you can see if a test signal is going crazy, like here, you can see you can hover, and it's going to hover in all panels, right? So if I can see what's going on here, oh, I saw that I see that the CPU likes 13%, or the memory is like this, or the disk usage, or whatever, right? So there's more panels we're going to be adding. And to your point here about the GPUs, yeah, we have not added a GPU panel because everybody talks their own language. Like Intel talks their own way, and NVIDIA. So we're going to create a plugin for different types of GPUs. But you can install this on these machines that you were talking about, this NUC, and see what the resources are when you start a signal. When you start a 4K signal, what's going on with your CPU, right? You can track that here together.
Yeah, last night I was just using Task Manager and looking at the GPU, because that's what we're trying to figure out is, are we hitting the limits of these GPUs? Because I don't want to spend excess money. So the difference in the minis forums, because we're planning on doing these for city councils chambers across the country. So when we're looking at an $800 computer versus a $1,200 computer, it starts to add up, especially if we're going to have on-prem and ditch the cloud. So it's just operator has a bridge and on-prem has a bridge. And now we want to see how many can we actually push. Is it 3? Is it 6? Is it 8? Because we don't know if we're going to need graphics, or if something else might come popping in besides the 3 or 4 or 5 cameras. So it'd be nice to have the GPU, if you can put it in there, just the PC's version from Task Manager. Is that possible?
It is. And that was, so let me quickly share here what the idea of what's coming. It's now. So the idea is not that we're going to make this a modular, because when we put it out, of course, customers said, hey, what about this? What about that? What about that? And then when you start getting this, then your small software, which is currently 27 megabytes, is going to blow out to 2 gigabytes, with all these libraries in and all these features, and not everybody needs everything, right? So we decided, okay, let's make it modular. So GPU is going to be a modular plugin. So you'll get your plugin depending on the GPU you're using. You're using NVIDIA and Intel. So it's going to be made specific for that hardware device. And that opened us to anything else can be modular, right? So we can even talk to Dante. If we get their library and we can get into the plugin, we can give you stats of Dante. We can give you stats of your SMPTE 2110. We can give you stats or send back controls to a microcontroller, to turn on a light bulb. So as long as we can talk to you, it communicates through our agent. Our agents are two-way. We can send commands. We can receive telemetry. So we're going to have a centralized dashboard that's going to be able to talk different languages for everything, and you can get the plugins that are specific for you. So in that case, GPUs, Dantes, NSMP, DMX, whatever you want, we will have these specific plugins. And the plugins that are coming is, for instance, the saturation signal. I think this one's really going to be released in version 1. This one is very important, guy. It's that you can turn on 4K, 60 frames per second, uncompressed signals. Okay, what happens if you turned on the 6th one? Oh, everything crashes. Okay, let's go. So maximum 5. If you're going to be in the safe zone, 4, right? So you're going to be able to generate saturation signals from NDI. Select what kind of compression do you want, so you can control the bandwidth and frames per second. And they have another agent picking up those signals, and then another signal, it's going to get you the stats of your network. So that way you can test the limits.
So exciting, because some of these switches don't have the proper backplane speeds that they need to on all ports, and so having this tool would allow me to see, okay, at 6, that's it. Like you're tapped out. Don't try and push it anymore. And then we have other switches that the new Ubiquities Pro Maxes have an NDI profile now. They're mimicking what the success of Netgear M4250s are doing. So I'd love to be able to use your tool if I geeked out and had enough time to be able to compare these two, because the price difference is amazing. And so last night I just flipped up on my Pro Max, the NDI profiles, and I have my Netgears. And so I'm starting to do some of this, but I didn't have a tool like yours to be able to measure it. I was just loading up. So I have Mark Gilbert's NDI tool to be able to push out test patterns and saturate, but I have to launch multiple instances. So having your tool allows me to just, sounds like, click.
And we're not just going to we're sending white noise. So we're actually testing your codecs and your coding and decoding, right? Because we're not sending just empty packets or, let's say, static images, right? We're not sending a video, we're sending white noise. So you're actually testing what's going on, right? Because that's different than just sending a test pattern with this static image, right? Or maybe, something that's bouncing, but it's not as intense as a white noise image. So we're testing the limits of your network, and the other thing is that these saturation signals will be then paired with the hardware devices. So if anyone here has a good contact with Ubiquiti and could put in a good word for us, that would be amazing. Because we would love to have also a panel for Ubiquiti. We're not talking to them yet. We're talking to some other companies, leaders in the space as well. But you will be able to see, are you maxing out your backplane? Are you maxing out your uplink? Are you maxing out your ports? Are you getting errors, right? Are you getting packets dropped and stuff like that? So you'll have a single dashboard with all the information in a time series. So you can see it like happening at the same time, and you can align things and see what happens, right? So that's I think that's the beauty of Grafana here in the software.
Next question.
Jason Bashan, Albuquerque, New Mexico. What's the minimum reasonable number of machines you'd expect for an NDI Network Manager deployment?
Good question. So the agents are not tied to the sources. You can have 2,000 NDI sources, and you can have one NDI agent, right? Now, if you want to send a test signal and receive it, then you need at least 2 agents. But how many agents will depend on how complex your network is, because you want to locate them at points where they're going to give you information. Let's say you have let's say a high school or a university, right? A college. So you have one at this building, and then you have another agent across campus on the other building. So you can test across your fiber, across your switches, across your routers, or you have Studio A, Studio B in your central control room, then you should have at least one agent located in Studio A, one agent in Studio B, and one agent in your main control room, right? So the number of agents, it's totally based upon the complexity of your network and where do you want to send a test signal from here and there, right? It's the equivalent of you running with a laptop, right? Just go into a switch, plug it in. What do I see here? Oh, I see the signal, but I'm not sure if I'm dropping packets, right? So you'll start the signal remotely and see, hey, you're dropping packets here, or your signal is not getting 30 frames per second, it's 60 frames per second. So yeah, that'll be the answer to that question.
Go ahead, Jason. Some follow-up?
Yeah, I mean, we love turning things to 11 here. And so what I'm trying to figure out is, at what point, do you normally expect this kind of thing to be necessary? Because, of course, telemetry immediately becomes useful, just with an N of 2. But, I guess I'm just, when you were visualizing this, we were sketching it out, what size, cluster were you expecting?
If you have more than 10 signals, then an NDI, so it's so plug and play. It's so plug and play that it works until it doesn't. And when it doesn't work, what do? You start unplugging cables, you start, switching, rebooting your computer. So I think that if you have more than 10 signals, that means that you're probably you would like to be monitoring those signals, getting some stats on them, and like Alex was saying, getting a baseline of what you have over time, so that this represents normal, right? If something goes beyond this, okay, something's going on. Am I maxing out? Did I turn on my Dante network in the same NDI network, which all been there? Or the cleaning lady just came at night and plugged in the vacuum and started vacuuming, and then all the signal went haywire. So having a baseline will tell you all those things, and so 10 signals we think is a good starting point for these software. And because it's a subscription model, if you pay in advance, $50 something, and to have a good performance on your network, I think it's worth it.
Courtney, you had another follow up?
Just a question: Is the agent running in a browser somewhere on your network, on the individual networks that you want to monitor? Is it a plug-in to the browser? Is it running in your router? Where is it running?
It's a small piece of software that's running as a service. So we developed it for Windows, Mac, and Linux. And Raspberry Pis.
That was my next question. Thanks.
Well, because I'm a user as well of all these tools, I always complain about how is that vMix only developed on Windows, right? Why they couldn't port it to Mac, or So We set out, we started the company in 2021, end of 2021. And we said, we're going to always make this cross-platform. Like people are not wondering, like, is it going to run on, okay, if you already have the software, just make a little bit extra effort and port it out to everybody. So we are currently running as a service on Linux, Mac, and Windows and Raspberry Pis. Raspberry Pi is very important because it's portable. So you install it on it,
You just have
and
to
you get
put it
this
on your
Raspberry
network
Pi.
and have it preloaded in the Pi, and it'll just boot up and work as a little appliance then. Huh?
And you can generate a test signal with your Raspberry Pi. You can just walk in. So imagine you're setting up a live a venue for an event, right? And you're the integrator. So you want to, let's say, qualify your network before all the signals come in, right? Before the show. So you can have these tools to run all the tests, get all your Raspberry Pis and test the switches that are existing in that venue. And you can check, oh, yeah, everything is working fine. I can even print the records of all these tests I did. And you can deliver that to the people that are going to run the show, right? And say, hey, your network is ready. It's NDI worthy. You can run it with confidence, right? And during the show, you can still be monitoring and see, hey, if something is going wrong, what's going wrong, instead of, the screen going blank and you don't know what's going on, right?
Next question.
Douglas Carmichael is asking, can you set up alarms and alerts?
So because we decided to go with Grafana, I'm sure you're familiar with Grafana, right? Can you nod? Yes, everybody's familiar with Grafana here. So Grafana is a great tool, and it by itself is like, you need to get a degree to be able to manage everything that it has, right? It has so many things. So that's why we went, instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, we decided to go with this open source solution. And Grafana has so many features about alerts. So with Grafana, you can say, for instance, if it is 9 p.m., this signal has been down for 2 minutes, and this other computer is on, send me an alert. So you can get these compound alerts, otherwise you get alert fatigue, right? If you get too many alerts, you start ignoring them. So you want to make them very significant, right? That only it sends you an alert when it's actually the combination of all these things, or the signal has been down for 10 minutes. If it is after 9 p.m., don't bother me until next morning. So all these things you can set up. So Grafana, it's great for alerts. We have not put out a video yet on how to set up alerts because it's tricky in itself, but we will surely do soon for these kind of signals. But it's very, very complex and comprehensive.
You can set several. So in essence, you can stack several conditions on top of one another so that you're getting an alert specifically when you want it. You're not getting false positives and having your phone blow up with notifications.
And then you just turn it off, and then all the alerts go out the window because you're not paying attention to anything. Right?
Amen. Next question.
Exactly.
Jason based in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I see you're natively supporting Apple Silicon. Does NDI Network Manager run on macOS Sequoia?
We have not tested it, but because this is not tested really extensively, that's what I was saying. But it runs on we tested it with the latest version of macOS, so I think so it shouldn't be any problem. And the reason is because our software is very light. All the libraries that it uses, it's pure C++. All right, so if there are any geeks here, coding geeks, they understand. So it's pure C++. We're not using high-level language, Python or Java or stuff that might be a little bit slower. We're using C++, very low-level code. That's why it's very light, nimble. And we've decided to go with very proven libraries that will work. Of course, NDI is one of them. So it should work. It should work on any of these platforms, even, like I said, Raspberry Pis, ARM64, ARM64, Windows ARM64. It should work with anything.
Next question.
Tommy Shanson, St. Paul, Minnesota. Is AVB audio on your list of supported formats?
So we are an NDI. We're a VSRT partner since the beginning. And NDI, it's exploding. So we love that. We also, our company, Avsono, also has some software for audio. I know you guys had the Llama guys a few weeks ago or a month ago. I'm not sure about that. But yeah, we were the first in the space with audio for NDI audio, 64 channels, 255 channels. And we do have a fair amount of software that's for NDI audio out there. So our first inclination was NDI, right? That's our first inclination. But as we hear from customers and we listen what they're asking us for, we are more and more certain that these will become an AV network manager, not just an NDI network manager. So at some point, we will be adding more protocols and more stuff. So we might drop the name NDI. Will still be an NDI focused product, but maybe we drop the NDI name from the name and added AV, because we will be monitoring, like you just said, AVB, or we could be monitoring AES67, Ravenna, Livewire for audio, right? So it's going to be an iPhone that comes with preloaded with a certain apps, but then you will be able to plug in anything that you want. It will even turn on a light bulb if you want to.
Next question.
Ike Potter in Hanover, Germany. What does a white noise image and video look like?
Well, I mean, it's just a matter of a varying gray shades of gray in these dots, right? Exactly. So what it does is, because it's changing so fast, your code, this is a very lively image that needs to be encoded every frame, right? Because it's moving fast. So we're actually testing it. So thank you so much for putting that up.
You've defeated temporal compression because everything's changing every frame, right?
Exactly. And NDI by itself, if a frame is the same as the other one, NDI would stop sending it. So that's why using test patterns to test your network is not the best signal, because it's static. So and the NDI library actually repeats this frame. So if it is not changing, it'll just send the same frame over and over. So it's not changing. So that's why and thank you so much, Sarah, about the live example of white noise. That's what we're doing. We're actually pushing the edge on the envelope on the codecs.
Next question.
If anybody wants to know what it looks like, just take an old analog TV and turn it on to any channel these days, and it'll look like this.
There he goes.
That's white noise.
All right, next question.
Guy Cochran in Seattle. In the first slide, can you tell us more about IGW? Is that an AWS transit gateway?
Yeah. So the whole point was to show that there's a way for these two VPCs to communicate, right, through the public IP, right? We were able to get through the internet gateway all the way here, so we could pull a signal. Let me quickly show you here. So, for instance, this is OBS West, and if I get OBS East, I'm able to get the signal. I should be able to get the signal.
And that's full fat 120 megabit NDI going from east to west?
Yes, that's in this case 1080 30p. Something happened actually with my connection. Anyway, I supposedly yeah, there you go. I'm supposed to get the video from VPC east to west, but these are over the internet connections, so they're inside AWS. So we're not doing any special with it, no multicast or any kind of optimization. So you lose a bit of frames here. You're not going to be able to get 30 frames. And so this is a great example.
That's what I was asking. I was like, wow, I hadn't seen that before. I hadn't seen full fat NDI go from VPC to VPC.
Right. But if you see, that's the beauty of it. You might not notice with your eyes, but it's some frames are being dropped, And of course, NDI is trying to recover by probably mixing two frames or trying to bring some old frames. And because of the memory of your eye, you're not getting that those frames are missing. But instead of just relying on your eyes, that's what you can come in here and say, hey, OB West, tell me what that signal is. So here in this case, for instance, let me see if I can connect to that signal. I'm going to tell OBS West, connect to a specific source called Wirecast. So I can even type Wirecast here and submit. And then that should give me stats. Right? It's like running Berto diagram stuff. It's going to take 30 seconds to get the data, and about 15 more seconds to just update the data, right? So we should wait for a few seconds here to show it up. So maybe we could take another question. But the point is, if you're seeing these, there's some frames being dropped, but how many? You don't know, right? But now you're going to be able to tell how many frames are being dropped, and how can you update modify your networks. So yeah, in a few more seconds, we should get some stats here.
Yeah, why don't we pop into the next question, and then we'll you can leave your screen share up if you like.
Oh, okay.
We can cut between the two, and then we'll come back to that. Go ahead with the next question.
Jason Beish in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Are AVB certified Ethernet NICs required for NDI Network Manager to work properly?
I'm not sure. We have not tested with AVB yet, so I wouldn't be able to respond to that yet. So yeah, can't tell you anymore right now.
Let's go one more question, and then we'll see if we can get back into the dashboard.
Ryan Thomason, Houston, Texas. Is the management done out of band or real-time in band? And if in band, is there any latency of the stream added?
So the data, it's collected through NDI. So we have an NDI finder, we have an NDI receiver, we have an NDI sender. So our agents are connecting using NDI. You can see here that, we updated the signals. The telemetry information is being sent out of band meaning not through NDI. We're using HTTP to send the data. So the data will have its own latency, the telemetry data, but that's fine. I mean, it's only data that's going to be sent. And it doesn't matter if it doesn't arrive like for instance, these tests, like it took 30 seconds to collect the data and about 15 seconds to update. And the reason is because our dashboard cannot be collecting data every millisecond, right? You're going to overwhelm your dashboard. So our dashboard is running every 5 seconds. Okay, every 5 seconds is refreshing, and you can get the data here. For instance, this one was a very low frames per second. So at some point, maybe even the image got stuck. And you won't be able to tell that with your eyes necessarily, or you might, maybe these low of a frames per second, you will be able to tell. But that means that when we were testing, that signal got stuck somehow, and that's why we're getting a very little frames. We were expecting about 900 frames, and we only got 180. No, we got 900 minus 697 frames. So it's very low, right? So yeah, this is showing you that the signal is not going to be very good. You can of course run the test again.
So Pablo, how would you solve that? Would you stick an NDI bridge, or what other protocol would you use to get from gateway to gateway, or from data center to data center?
I would do exactly that. Get an NDI bridge. I would also get probably a VPN. Also, I need to tell you, these are not very fast machines. So OBS West, it's an extra. This is 4 extra large, but the one that is sending the data, Wirecast, it's only 2 CPUs. This is 8 CPUs, and again, we should use either a VPN, a tunnel between the 2 VPCs, or go NDI bridge. But again, you can discriminate, right? You can see here that your CPU usage on these OBS West is not that high. So I would not say that the problem is the machine. I would say it's the network. Okay. Now, can I see if it is the sender the problem? Yes. If I go to a machine that's in the same VPC as the machine that's sending the data, you can see that we didn't lose any frame. Right? So now you know it's not the sender.
And that sender has a GPU, or is it a GPU? The
sender doesn't have a GPU. Yeah, this is the sender.
Okay.
This is the sender. It has a GPU, and we're running these signals out of it. So in this case, you can be sure. So what we did is we took this machine here and tested Wirecast. Okay, no frames lost. And then we take this one and connect to Wirecast. Yeah, frames lost. Okay, so that might be the network. Or you can say it could be the receiver, right? But if you have a 4 extra large G4 machine, I think that's plenty of power to handle a single 30 frames per second signal. So you might come to the conclusion the problem is the network. And by the way, we will deliver a a dashboard of AWS network information. We will tell you what the bandwidth is, what the packets drop, because all that information is already there, right? You know that. Everybody knows that.
Will it be logged in archive so you can pull that down after the fact? Like if in the middle of a show, if something hit and you're like, what happened? Can you go back and explain to the client? So looking at the log.
Again, that's the beauty of the platform, because the platform is a time series database, Prometheus. So even if AWS is providing you snapshots of the data, you're storing it in the time series database, right? So if you're getting the data, you'll have the logs for on your Prometheus up to 15 days, which is our current maximum limit, 15 days of data. So yes, you will be able to see the stats of your AWS, VPC or VPCs, subnets in a dashboard in a time series, so you can correlate problems with your network in AWS. That's coming as well.
Pablo, thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate your time and you sharing. This is so cool to be able to bring this into NDI in a way that we haven't seen before. How can people get their hands on this tool and start seeing how they can, how to integrate this into their workflows and into their shows? What's the best way to get started?
Yeah, certainly. The link is Avsono or Avsono. I think it was Dr. NDI Roberto who coined the name Avsono. So I'm going to go with it. So avsono.com/network manager. And you should be able to get a link to start your trial or contact us, see some videos, some training series there. I know some people have been complaining about that. We try to make it very scriptable, so you can run this, install everything in a script, but that made it a little bit less GUI friendly. So people are complaining about, is it command line? Yes, it is command line because we intended to make it scriptable for the installation of these software. But in any case, you'll find videos and less than 2-minute videos showing how to install Mac, Windows, and Linux, and get your free trial on avsono.com/network manager.
Thank you so much. And you are welcome back anytime you have something new that you want to chat about. We love to kind of be on the bleeding edge of what's new so that we can, be on that first wave. I appreciate it. Also, thank you to our panel for being here in the first and the second hours. Not one of us is any near as smart as all of us, and certainly today we had some great perspectives brought in, and you enrich us all every day with that experience that you're sharing. Thank you to the back-end crew. It's a small village, lights up every day all over the world, make our show run. We have volunteers working not just on the show, but also around the show to keep us organized, to book great guests like Pablo to come in. Can't do it without you. And finally, thanks to the producers for asking such great questions. It's a really short show without you, and you keep us going every day, not only with questions, but also with some swag, perhaps. If you like what we're doing here at Office Hours, you can now support the show by picking up a limited edition, tight-fit and good-looking Office Hours Global t-shirt, which you can grab up until the 20th of November at officehours.global/shop. It's a great way to support the show. And as always, you can contribute at officehours.global/donate. Tlaloc traversal today, 59,000 miles, 95,000 kilometers. That's 465 million bananas for scale, should we have needed to walk around and ask all these questions in person. But we were able to do it in about 2 hours without any air travel, thanks to Office Hours. We'll see you in After Hours. Hope you have a great day.
Thank you, Pablo. That was great.
Pablo, that was
All right.
awesome.
That was awesome.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Right.
I mean, just write to me at Pablo.Quintana at Avsono or info@Avsono. We'll get we can get you set up as quickly as you want and start testing it. I know JJ's already testing it, so he can also tell you what's going on there.
So I've got to ask, how do you, just real quick, how did you make that turn from being a Lean Six Sigma operations guy working for multinationals to going on to found a startup that's supporting this sort of an industry? That's quite the story.
It is.
Sure.
I've been involved with audio and video since my youth at church. I play instruments and I helped with the audio boards back then. Everything analog, right? But then and I was very keen with computers and stuff.